Welcome to our second Fertility Circle live event. This event is going to be a community conversation about pregnancy loss and coping strategies. And just before we begin, I just wanted to start by saying that obviously we are aware that this is quite a sensitive subject for some people, and some people might find it triggering, and it might not be the right time for you to watch this. So if that's the case, this will be saved in the expert section for you to watch at any point, so you can come back to it when you feel ready. So it's Baby Loss Awareness Week, and we know how extremely challenging that can be for a lot of people. So we're really grateful to have Kelly Silva join us, who is a fertility support expert and founder of a childless support organisation called the Dovecote. So thank you, Kelly, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So yes, we're just going to start by chatting a bit about pregnancy loss and how to cope with that, which is a very difficult thing.
Absolutely. So I think, this week is can be a really triggering one, whether or not you've been through miscarriage and pregnancy loss recently, or whether it was a few years ago or going through it now. It's I think it's really important, first of all, just to kind of check in with yourself in terms of where you're at. My miscarriages were 10 and 7 years ago. So whilst it's not as raw as it perhaps was, I still have to really just kind of be mindful in terms of where I'm at and what I post and how much I post. So, over the weekend, obviously there was quite a lot out there, and I did my post and then I stepped away. I just felt like I needed to do that to protect myself, and I've got webinars and different things going on this week. So I think it's, again, just first of all, it's okay to be wherever you are. It is a very triggering subject, like we've said, and it's incredibly painful. And hopefully the session will just give you some ideas in terms of kind of how you can deal with this, how you can learn to live with this. It's not about it's not going to just go away and disappear and just get over it, but actually, there's some tangible things, tools, strategies that can help you to deal with the next day, few weeks, next few years as well. So my first thing would be, give yourself time and just take it day by day. It's incredibly painful to go through this pregnancy, baby loss, miscarriage, and like and I know, it's such a difficult thing to have to deal with, and people don't often know how to respond in the best way. So I think the second bit really is talking about friends and family. So friends and family will often try and fix your pain, and I think it's really important to kind of recognize that whilst the pain is there, and the pain is kind of a healthy response to what we're going through, actually we don't have to suffer in this. So in terms of friends and family, yes, they will say things that, at least you didn't, oh, you didn't want, I had, oh, you didn't want a poorly baby. It's just the worst thing anybody could actually say to you. So having those, healthy boundaries, I'm going through this, and that communication, right now I don't want to speak about it, or I'm really struggling today, I'll just put those boundaries in place. And it can be through a text, it can be through a call, and I still have to do it with my mum about certain things that she'll say, and I'll be like, oh, that's triggering, that's made me feel like a failure. But actually, that open conversation, people don't actually realise that they're doing it, and so I think that can be really useful.
It's perhaps sometimes a lack of understanding, isn't it? They don't fully understand what you've been through, and they're just trying to say something to make you feel better, but don't quite know how to phrase it.
Completely. And I've just put a little post on Instagram, actually, and it
Yes.
was kind of the things that are really useful to say.
Mm.
And I wrote down, what you don't want is pity, advice, and sympathy. But what we do want is people saying, it must be really hard, I'm here if you want to talk.
Mm.
And we don't need to be fixed. We can't fix that pain. But actually, people can help us with our grief by not adding to our suffering, because there's a difference. The pain is a natural and healthy response to what we're going through, but actually suffering can be fixed and can be made to feel less significant by the things that we can do and can control, but also how people respond to our situation. So I think that's really important. And I think, people wanting to go, well, at least, it didn't, or, and that question, how far along were you? It's a bit like when somebody says, oh, my grandparents died, and the first thing they say is, how old? It's almost a justification that, oh, well, at least it was only 4 weeks. And there isn't any at least about this. Your loss is your loss. Your pain is your pain. And whether it's a natural pregnancy or an IVF pregnancy, when that embryo goes in, that's your baby. When you get that positive line on the pregnancy test, you start planning, the first birthday, the birthdays, Christmases, and it's difficult. And yesterday my niece was 10 and my sister was pregnant at the same time as me. So whilst it's a really joyful day, and she's really excited it's the 10th birthday, I had that kind of deep sadness that actually, yeah, we should have a little girl that was 10 as well. And obviously don't say anything, but it's there, and I don't think it ever goes away. So it's kind of, how do we gently kind of look after ourselves so we can care and move and learn to live with this? Because yeah, I think that's really key. I think it'd be really useful to kind of go through the next point. So like I said before, in terms of the pain being a healthy response, the suffering often comes when we feel dismissed or unsupported. So kind of people just not really getting it, not really understanding it, going, oh, well, at least you've got one, you've already got a child. Or and I think, unless people have been through this, they really don't understand. So it's trying to be a little bit kind of not even accepting, but just knowing that people, their intentions are often, it comes from the best place. However, how that is often communicated isn't, and it's often not what we want to hear. So I think, weeks like this week are really useful because we can try and educate our family and friends and the general population about what we actually need, what's useful, what's helpful to say.
Yeah, it's definitely good to let more people know how it feels. I actually had a friend recently who unfortunately had a loss herself, and she said to me, oh my goodness, I didn't fully understand what you've been through until it happened to her. And I was like, but you wouldn't. There's no way anyone could know, So it's helpful to do things like this so that more people can be aware of it.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's true, because unless you've been in those person's shoes, you just don't know what it feels like. And it's different for all of us as well. How some people can learn to live this a little bit quicker. Other people, it takes time. And I think if I've had people contact me this over the weekend to say, that they've had 5 IVF cycles, they got pregnant on their last cycle, and then they've had a miscarriage. And it's so difficult when you've had that big long journey, through treatment. And I imagine, I know when I got pregnant through IVF, you're incredibly anxious. And then to lose it like we did at 6 weeks is kind of just, all those hopes are just dashed, and it's just, unbearable. It's heartbreaking. And I think it's so important that we talk about it.
Yeah, it's such a roller coaster. You go on this long journey to get to that point, and then you get pregnant, you think amazing, and then it can all sort of come crashing back down again.
Yeah,
It's so hard.
yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to kind of keep positive in all of it, but
Yeah.
it's you can definitely get through this. And I think one of the useful things, and before we started, I chatted about my mentorship program that I'm doing, and this week is all about grief. And one of the things, the helpful tools that I've shared with my little mentees, is the fact that you can look at your suffering, and it's really useful to make 2 little lists. One, that you're caring for yourself well, evidence that you're caring for yourself well. So write all those things down. So, are you getting sleep? Are you taking time for yourself? Are you, thinking about your thoughts, your negative thoughts? check in with those. And then on the other side of the page, on the other list, is evidence that you're suffering. So it could be anxiety, not sleeping well, not eating particularly well, isolating yourself from people. And it can just be really useful to write down those two lists of evidence to go, actually, how does that look? If I'm really struggling at the moment, is it because actually there's a lot of suffering going on? So look at that other side. What things can you do? What can you go back in your toolkit, that you can kind of, your self-care toolkit, that goes, I know that what's going to help me a little bit. And whether that's speaking to a friend that's been through this, or connecting with somebody who's been through pregnancy loss, or getting involved in an Instagram live, or just being with others that are going through this, can be really useful. So look at that evidence. There's so much with the pain aspect that we can't deal with. It's just here. But actually, that suffering side of things, I think there are tangible things that we can do, that we do have control of, that actually will make us feel that much better, with all of this as well. So
And
that
good
can
to look at those things, because sometimes when you're in that place, you need to take a step back and think, actually, hang on, let me look at this and see where I need to maybe work a bit more on with caring for myself, or maybe chatting to someone or something.
Yeah, because I think it's really easy to kind of focus on the darkness in all of
Yeah.
this, and the negativity and what's gone wrong. And I know just how, and you know how hard it is to go through this, and to have that taken away from you when it's just everything that you want. So to go, okay, so how can I nurture myself in this situation? And it's within our control to be able to actually do that. And some of that is just stepping into our power. Some of that is speaking up, and kind of saying, actually, I need this, actually I need space, I just need a weekend on my own. And I remember just having to wallow and just to feel it. And I always say to the ladies that I support, you have to feel it in order to heal it, because it's there, it's energy. Emotions are just energy in motion, and we have to work through that and recognize that it is grief that we're dealing with. And eventually we can adjust to a different, a new way of living with that loss. But I just think it's really important to be kind to ourselves, and as we're going on that journey. It can be really useful, actually, to for me, because it was pregnancy loss, a miscarriage. I remember 2 or 3 years ago really struggling with Baby Loss and Awareness Week, and there was lots of pictures out there of people with their babies that have kind of died, and I didn't feel like I had anything. I didn't feel like I had a place to go, because I had a medically removed kind of D&C. So I didn't kind of pass anything, or I didn't have a place to go. So we live in the Midlands, and if you are around the area, at the National Arboretum Memorial, just near Burton, they've got a Sands garden within that. So they have lots of different memorial, and they've got a Sands baby loss and pregnancy loss, where you can actually take a stone and write the baby's name on, or whatever. And I went along on Baby Loss Day, it was 3 years ago, and went along there, and just to feel like I had a place that I could actually go and to grieve and remember. And that's kind of the tip here, is kind of, it can be useful to have. I've got a little memory box of, I remember, because I've been to the doctors, and you get all your little freebies, and they give me a little teddy, my pregnancy pack, and all this sort of stuff, and obviously my scan pictures and things. So I've got a little memory box that I've got as kind of a keepsake. For me, it's useful to have that, as to almost, because it's so long ago, it's real, it happened, it's part of who I am. So I think having that can be really useful. Having a place to go can be really useful. And I was told by I was doing some therapy with somebody who happened to be a medium. This is kind of a little bit woo-woo now, but she said to me, she said, my girls came through, and she said they want names and they want birthdays, and I knew when the due dates were, so I named them. And then in the garden I've planted a rose and a lily, because that's what I named them. just to have something in
Yeah,
the garden to remember, and it just felt kind of just really, really peaceful,
yeah.
kind of just honouring them really, that they were something, and not.
It's nice for you to have that place that you can go to. And I guess for everybody, it's finding the thing that it would be right for them. I always had this idea I would get some tattoos of little stars on my wrist, and each little star would be one of the losses. I've never got around to doing it, but maybe one day I will. So I think it's finding
Yeah.
something that you can sort of have
Something
as a
that brings
reminder.
you comfort. Yeah, I think it's just whatever brings you comfort.
Yeah,
And I know before the call we said, I lost a cow in
yeah,
July that we'd had for 14 years. So at the beginning of our fertility journey, and that really felt like an end of a chapter, and really struggled with that loss. And what was really interesting was I actually got more sympathy and understanding for losing my cat than I did
oh my
miscarriage.
goodness.
Openly on like
Yeah,
Facebook and Instagram, people could actually get it and
yeah,
understood, because obviously lots of people have lost pets.
yeah.
And it was just such a interesting light bulb moment, because I just thought, actually I've got 200 kind of comments, and the sympathy and the understanding, and that must be really hard. But actually I put something on around infertility or childlessness or pregnancy loss, and you get 20, maybe 20 likes, something like that. And it's, people
It
find this
frightens people.
really, really difficult subject. They don't know what to say, and
It's
just do a
uncomfortable.
little heart emoji or a little care emoji is just enough. It's that acknowledgement, and I think sometimes that's all we need, is acknowledgement of our loss and
Yeah.
our grief that we've had to go through.
Yeah, definitely. So I think people find it so uncomfortable, which is a shame, and that's another reason why these kind of weeks and these awareness events really will help, because I think people are uncomfortable because they're not used to talking about these things openly,
Yeah, yeah,
or they're shocked by seeing Instagram posts about it, or things in the press, and it's like, actually, this is real. This is what's happened to people. It's we need to be able to talk about it.
yeah. And that was really interesting with Chrissy Teigen. She put
Yeah,
out there about her loss, and it was kind of, the internet blew up, because some people that have been through this were like, that's amazing that she's sharing this, and then others were like, no, she shouldn't be doing that.
yeah,
And it was another really interesting key moment, I think, in all of this, because actually it just showed society that we do need to be open about this, and we do need to talk about it, because it's really hard stuff, and there's more people going through this than
yeah.
we actually know about. Often people keep this to themselves, which is fine if you want to keep this private. But it's difficult either way, whether you're open or whether you're not. I think you either deal with it on your own, or you deal with it with people trying to fix you with different ideas about
Yeah.
how people have dealt with this. So yeah, really tricky. And I
Maybe it's
think
as
the
well
other
sorry. Maybe it's as well finding that time to talk. Like if you don't feel ready straight afterwards to talk to somebody, that's okay. Just maybe a few months or a few years down the line, you'll be ready to speak about it, and or maybe you'll never be ready to speak about it, and that's completely
yeah,
fine. It's just whatever you're comfortable with.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's great advice, because it's always however you feel at the time,
Yeah,
and you might just need time just to not even talk to anybody about it. But equally, there are counsellors, the doctors are there as well, that if you do need that support, there is support out there. I've found in my journey, really throughout my journey, like infertility and childless journey, that for me the biggest thing was around that community and sense of belonging, because feeling like I didn't fit in has kind of been, for the last 16 years, it's kind of like had this label of infertility, then had this label of childlessness. But actually now I kind of see that it's part of who I am. It's not who I am, but it's just part of who
yeah.
I am. And it's led me to do the work that I do now, which I absolutely love. And so yeah,
I think it's
but it's
incredible that you now support people and help people, and it's so important to have people like yourself who've actually experienced it, because that can make a big difference to help comfort someone who is going through it.
yeah, I think it makes a difference. Like I said, just having somebody that knows exactly how it feels, and that's what people say to me. The fact that they can share their story and they know that I get it makes a massive difference. It's almost like a weight's just lifted from their shoulders because they know that, yeah, I feel it too. And
Yeah.
it's I feel incredibly privileged to work in this area, because you've got extreme joy, when it does work and it's successful, and then you've got the other end as well, and being able to support people through that and through their journey and grief, and trying to develop that resilience to go, you can go again, when you're ready, you can go again, and it's okay to take your time and to have a break and just to pause,
Yeah.
and then go when you're ready and you feel that you're emotionally up for it again. So
Yeah.
yeah, really, really tricky. And linked to the memory box thing, actually, one of the things that can be really useful for people, and it's not for everybody, would be writing a letter to your baby. And that's something that's recommended. I know lots of, like we talked about, emotion being energy in motion. Actually, either talking about it or writing it down, and whether that's journaling in a letter, and having that just gets that energy out and onto paper, and having those words, and saying, how much you love them, as soon as you're pregnant, you love them so much. And that is just so important to be able to do that, if that's something that you think will be really useful for you. So there are lots of things we can do, to kind of just relieve that suffering. The pain will be there. And I know one of the questions that I get asked quite a lot is, well, I always feel like this, and I felt like that too. I'm like, will I ever get over this? And you don't ever get over it, but like we said before, we learn to live with it. And I think by being gentle with ourselves, you can do.
Yeah. Can become easier. And actually, someone did ask, they find it particularly difficult being around friends with babies. Will that get any easier? That is,
I found that it has. Now I don't know if that's just because of my NLP tools and disassociation. I think because we start trying to conceive like 15 years ago now, when I see babies, I feel different to how I have felt over the past 15 years, because now I guess I think, well, mine would be coming up to teenage years, and a bit older. So I feel like coming up to 40, that actually having a baby, that for me, that ship sailed. So I feel like I guess I feel a bit numb about it, but it has been really difficult,
it's
especially with,
partly acceptance. You sort of accepted the stage you're at now, so
yes,
it's perhaps.
yeah.
But when you're in that, if you're actually trying to conceive and that's what you really long for, that it's quite a difficult time.
It's incredibly difficult, and I've, in the 14 years, 15 years that, well, in the 10 years that I was actually physically trying for a baby, my siblings, I've now got 13 nieces and nephews, so we've had a lot of babies that I've
Goodness.
had to kind of get used to and love, and now adore, and they're amazing. But yeah, I completely had to protect myself, and it's difficult with family because it's not like friends. You can't really make an excuse. um, but actually, yeah, for me, I found it really difficult to hold the babies when they were first born. Just I didn't want a picture with them either. It was really
Yeah,
strange because I felt like, I guess growing up, I was always really maternal, and people, you'd hold a baby and people would always say, "Oh, you're not broody, are you?" And it's all that sort of stuff. And for me, that was really triggering, to hold a baby, and for people to say that, because I've have had that as well whilst we were trying, and was holding one of my nieces. It was just like a grandparent that said it. It really, really hurts. So again, it's just about, just be honest with yourselves, and with your friends. If they're your friends, they will be there for you. If they've not been through it, they won't understand properly. But just say, I'm really finding this quite difficult at the moment, and if you can be honest about your situation, hopefully they'll have an understanding of that.
yeah.
um, Definitely.
Yeah, I always used to have a fear if I met a friend with a baby that they would ask me to hold the baby. I don't want to hold it. I don't want, and I didn't want to have that awkward conversation. So I'd almost like the whole time just be thinking, please don't ask me to hold it. Um,
It
yeah,
happened to me a couple of years ago. I just had one launched on me, so I really couldn't do anything about it. I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah, we have this uncomfortable moment.
Yeah, it is really uncomfortable, and it is really hard. And I think people, they don't think, we said this, haven't we? That it's the best intentions. They just want to share their baby. And but I know I shared with you that, before this, that we've just got a new puppy, and I would never say, hey, have my puppy. You just wouldn't have that. Not everybody likes puppies, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
But
Never to think at all.
yeah, but yeah, be honest with your friends, just say, I'm really struggling, I'm really struggling right now. And yeah, it's really hard because our friends and family can put us in the most difficult and painful situations without even realizing.
Yeah.
um
We have some more questions about
yeah.
friends. Someone said they're scared to tell friends about the miscarriage because I don't want them to treat me any differently and to feel like they're walking on eggshells when I'm around. How best to tell them so that they don't feel awkward?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? She
Or,
doesn't want to tell. She does want to tell them. It's kind of that. It's that. Oh, what do I do? And I think again, it's how you might want to. And it can be really useful to write it down. So whether that's in a message or an email or just explaining, this is where I'm at. This is what's happened, and it's a bit like we said about our boundaries and what we want and what we need. This has happened. It's been really difficult. I want you to know, but at the moment I'm not ready to talk about it.
sometimes
And
in a text message that's easier to do, isn't it? You don't have to
absolutely,
explain too much,
yeah,
but then they know.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of like a non-threatening kind of way, because you've not got that response back. It's not somebody there going, oh, I need to fix your pain straight away, like we often get when we're in front of people. But actually it's safe, in that. I know the for me, like some of the biggest things being a part of WhatsApp groups recently, on Facebook you can unfollow people and kind of not have those triggers, but WhatsApp groups sometimes you just get like this, oh, I'm expecting, and it's like, I've
Yeah,
not asked to see your baby, your
I
scan
know.
picture. And
And
again, it's just people wanting to share, and I just think there's some things that we just can't get away from. But yeah, in terms of like sharing with friends, just think about the best way. The thing that, yeah, and I think it's a nice gentle way of saying what you've been through, what your needs are, and just be really, trying to be as clear as possible. And boundaries sounds really harsh, but I don't really mean, it's just what you need. What you need right now in your heart is just for people not to talk about it, or if I do want to talk about it, I'll bring it up.
yeah, I guess it's all about communication and being open with people
It's
as much as
key. Yeah, it's key. And as much as you want to share about it as well, there's, if you've got a friend who's been through it, it can be useful to go into the details of what happened, just to, not feel like you're alone. And that's the key thing this week. There's lots of you're not alone. But actually, sometimes we still feel like we're alone
yeah,
because we've not shared with anybody. So, reaching out to the people that have been through this, or like we said before, taking part in things like this can be really useful because you are not alone. So, yeah.
someone else said to me recently, it's all about who you share with as well, because you might have certain friends that you know are going to be really supportive. So you might choose to share with them over someone that you think actually they might be a bit comfortable with this. You might have a different way to sort of tell them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, just it's how much you want to share, and how comfortable you feel. And yeah, and I think knowing your friends as well, you know who you can and can't talk to.
Yeah. And obviously, for some people, it's difficult for them to open up and talk to people. So someone said, I'm not very good at talking about my losses. Is there any help I can access without having to speak to someone? And I know you mentioned like journaling and writing things down. Maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Just if you're not wanting to speak to somebody physical, like a counsellor or friends or whatever, then yeah, definitely journaling feelings down is really, really useful. Go back to that task, signs you're suffering, signs that you're caring for yourself well. Physically seeing how we're doing is really useful. There's lots of blogs and journals and resources out there on baby loss and the websites that can support you. Fertility Network UK, that you don't have to kind of talk to anybody. There's forums as well. The Instagram community, you can have an anonymous tag name, that you can interact and just see what people are saying. Often people that join my community who are childless not by choice, for a while they don't engage with the conversations. They just sit back and they read what's been said, and just that sense of, yeah, I'm feeling like that too. I'm finding friends and family difficult, I'm finding thinking about the future difficult, and just reading what other people are going through just helps you to feel like you're not alone. Yeah, so that can be really useful too.
Yeah, and I think people, even just reading, you don't have to contribute, but you can still get a lot from that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Um, Next one is, it's been really difficult at work because I'm a private person and don't want to tell everyone what's happened, but feel like I should. What can I do? That is tricky at work.
Yeah, it is. So I think if you're a private person, it's finding a kind of a confidant at work that you can trust. I think having somebody that you can go to, um, kind of, whether that's like a supportive line manager or a colleague that knows your situation. It's really great to have somebody that's kind of got your back. If you're having a bad day, you can give them the nod. You can go for a cup of tea, take some time out, and just be gentle with yourself. I think if nobody knows and you're having a bad day, and however you might respond to that, whether that's being emotional, a bit snappy, it can be really useful to have that one person. I didn't particularly wanted to share, but when I was going through my losses, I was a teacher
Oh, wow.
and a year. So for me, I decided to share that just because it wasn't even about sympathy. It was just about going, actually, this has happened. This is why I'm off. And I think taking that time as well. I think some people feel like they have to rush back to work, and that can be really difficult. I think particularly if the pregnancy loss is further along where you were showing and things like that. It
And if
can
you've
be,
maybe already told people at work, it's then,
exactly. I mean, it's awful at any stage.
yeah,
Don't get me wrong. I think people who when we have to go back to work, and we'd probably, again, like we said, already planned that we're going to be on maternity leave in 3, 4, 5 months time, and then you're faced with the reality of, actually, no, we're going to be at work, and it's kind of like, but if that's everything that you wanted and that family that you wanted, that's really, really difficult.
yeah.
So again, just giving yourself time, and I don't know. I think it is just about finding that one person. You don't have to tell everybody. Yeah, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and I suppose even if you're at work, there might be certain dates and things that come up that are triggering. So if you have told someone, that could actually be a benefit, just to have someone there that will understand what you're going through at that time.
Absolutely, and I think it's really useful to plan as well. I know for the first few years after we well, during fertility was like, Christmas is always so hard, but since we decided to not have any further treatment 5 years ago, we've tried to make Christmases just different, because they're not how I think the loss, often the grief is disenfranchised, so society doesn't see our loss because we haven't lost anything in a physical sense, particularly if it's early pregnancy, and you weren't showing them. For people, they just don't see that loss. So we decided to make Christmases a little bit different. So we'd go away just before Christmas, and we've done a couple of Christmas mornings at Sandringham, to see the royals, and just things that are just completely different, that we would never have the opportunity to do, but making your own traditions and routines, because Christmas isn't how I imagined it would be with my own family. Life isn't how I imagined it would be. I have an incredibly fulfilling life, and a happy life with, and again, so this whole mindset thing, I've had to change my mindset around and focus on what I do have rather than what I don't have. And it's been a real conscious decision to look at gratitude. And you know, bringing a puppy into the house 5 weeks ago,
Yeah.
it's just brought so much joy, and it's just like, oh my goodness. And it's lovely actually to have something to nurture,
Yeah.
and something that's ours. So yeah, it's planning for those difficult moments, I think, is really key. If you know that you've got the anniversary of a miscarriage coming up, then you know, take that day off and do something really lovely for yourself. You don't have to deal with that at work. You know, if you can, if you're able to take the day off, that is. But even if you're not, then just think about what you can do and to kind of best support yourself in that day. Because I know that, you know, losses around this time of year, when we've got all things like trick or treating, where there's loads of pictures of children all over our news feeds, and then we've got Christmas, and it's really tough. There seems to always be something popping up on our news feeds that can be quite triggering. So
Yeah, and sometimes things come up that you don't even realise. The slightest little, it could be anything that triggers it for you, can't it?
yeah,
Smallest little.
definitely.
Um, yeah. And I think you talked a bit about life after loss. Do you want to talk about that a bit more, and how people might be able to, I don't know, how do you get to that point where you can start seeing a life afterwards, and kind of learning to live with it?
Yeah, I think the most important thing initially is to kind of try not to bury those feelings. Like I said before, it's I had to wallow and to really feel that loss and that grief. And I think you know, something that's really important is actually acknowledging that it is grief. I think initially I was like, oh, I just feel like I'm going a little bit mad here, but actually it is a loss, and it's not only a physical loss but also a loss of a life that you thought you were going to have. And I think, you know, coming to terms with that and learning to live with that takes time. It's not something that, you know, you just wake up one day and you go, oh, I feel better now. It's something that we gradually learn to live with. And it's taken me good 4 years, I would say, to feel at peace with the situation.
Yeah.
um, you know, people say, "Oh, so you've given up?" And I'm like, "No, I've not given up. I just decided that enough was enough." And for me, you know, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, I just decided that enough was enough. And I think you know in your own heart if you know you want to continue with treatment. Um, but I think dealing with that loss and having that loss and thinking about what life might look like, I think doing that grief work, like we talked about, you know, feeling it, having that place, connecting with other people, living day to day. And some days, you know, it's not even about day to day. Sometimes it's like it's, you know, but by lunchtime, if I've got dressed, that's great, and that's okay. It's just being where you are and feeling what you feel and being where you are, and knowing that whatever you feel is okay and it's normal. To feel the things that you do, you might feel that you're 100 steps ahead one day, and then you go back a few the day after, and that's fine too. There's no, I would say, there's no, you know, linear way to grieve and to heal through this. But for me, it's certainly been around. Initially, I felt like when the waves came, they just completely, you know, obliterate me.
Yeah.
And over time, I've learned to surf those waves. And when those triggers come and those anniversaries come around, I can, rather than it, you know, wiping me out for a few weeks, actually, I'm able to go, actually, that hurt. Okay, I feel that.
Yeah.
And then you let that, not let that go, but just get up from it a bit easier and a bit quicker, having the tools to be able to do that. So yeah, I think, you know, just being kind to yourself, and speaking to your partner if you're in a relationship around it about it as well, because that's key. They might be dealing with things differently. And something that I share quite a lot is around, you know, how we deal with this. So women are like a big bowl of spaghetti, everything's connected and jumbled up, and men are a bit like waffles, and they've got little boxes. And if they're not talking about it, it might be because their little loss, grief, miscarriage box is shut, and they're in their work box or their football box. But for us, you know, everything, will see somebody, or a little girl, or a mum and daughter, or whatever, and that can send you down a spiral. So that's okay. And I think it's just being aware that actually how we deal with it, might be different to how our partners might deal with it, and potential grandparents, as well, because that can be really difficult. They're having to deal with their loss. They don't want to see you hurting. So, yeah, really, it's a really tricky one. But communication, not in all of this, is key, and being kind.
And I think, like you said, if you have a partner, it is good to try and open up to them, because they go through it just as much as you do. It's their baby. They've lost the same as you, and they can understand what you're going through. And sometimes when you feel that you're alone, actually, you may have someone there that knows exactly what you're going through.
Yeah, they might not show it in the same way or want to talk about it as much
Yeah,
as you. And if they do talk about it, you might be like, ouch, I wasn't expecting that. That
yeah,
really hurt. But actually, it's really healthy to be able to. And the key thing with this as well, it's sometimes it's not even talking about it over dinner.
yeah,
It's a lot of the work that I do is kind of side by side walk and talk events. So,
yeah,
going out for a walk together, often we talk about things we wouldn't normally talk about. Going for a drive out, that's also really, really useful,
yeah,
because you've not got the face to face. It's non-threatening when it's side by side. So that's a really useful technique to try with anybody, actually, not just
yeah,
partners, but with anybody that you want to talk to.
yeah. Um, and actually, just thinking about partners and things, how would you advise someone to support their partner? Because if you're going through it yourself, it can be really hard, and it can take all of your energy to sort of try and kind of cope and get through it. And then you also have your partner that you want to support, but you might not know if you're supporting them enough, or know how to support them whilst trying to deal with your own grief. It's quite hard.
Yeah, I think it is really hard, and I think there's loads of there seems to be more awareness, so not loads, but there's more awareness about kind of the male side of things. And if you are in a heterosexual couple out there at the moment, there you can kind of signpost them to the male support groups. Fertility Network have got a male only monthly support network for guys, which they're getting about 30 guys each session, which is amazing. So that can be useful. You can signpost them to that. It can be useful for you to encourage them to go out with their friends,
Mhm.
because whilst they might not talk to the friends about that, specifically, if
Yeah,
you're at home really struggling, just having that space and for them to go out and do something different can be really healthy with the relationship. Like, say, trying to be as open as you can. I know this is really difficult. I'm really struggling right now. What I think what you find, particularly in the heterosexual couple, is the guys want to protect and they want to make you better, and um, I know for me, it felt like it was about my loss and my grief, and um, that can feel really all consuming. So I think it's really important we talk about partners, because actually it is our loss,
yeah,
Um, so I think, saying, how are you feeling about this? Just,
yeah.
it's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
I find it's really difficult. Um,
and
you know,
actually you can grieve together if that's what you want, and that can
you
be
can,
a
yeah,
sort of thing that can make you stronger as a couple.
yeah. But they also might grieve later on. That's the other thing as well. Whilst they're protecting, it might be that actually they go through their grief because that's in their little grief box and it's not open right now because they're busy protecting you box, and that's okay too.
Yeah,
But I think it's just to be mindful that that will come out, and it's like we said before about energy, and energy be emotions being energy in motion. That energy will come out some way, and if we don't talk about it some way, and get that energy out, then it can be really quite difficult. So
yeah,
yeah, encourage you to kind of, even if that counselling, often clinics offer free fertility counselling, and you can access that at any point. So that's something that you can do together. It isn't for everybody, sometimes just going out with your mates down the pub and having a chat about stuff, can
yeah.
really help.
I suppose for people, it's trying out these different techniques and finding out what works best for them and what makes them feel better.
Yeah, we're all different. We all deal with it differently, and I think, you know, even with our grief, we'll find that we did different things and at different points in time, and you do work out what's best for you. Um, but I think the most difficult thing to deal with is not saying anything and for bottling all that up. So finding a safe space where you can talk about what you've been through and how you're feeling, however that might be, whether that's informal, you know, counselling, whether that's formal counselling, whether that's, you know, being on an Instagram group, live, forum. It's just seeing what works best for you, really. But there is so much support out there, and I'm just so delighted that we've got things like the Fertility Circle app that's got so many resources for people and are bringing experts together. Because like I said to you, you know, you founders, I just wish I had the Fertility Circle app when I was going through this,
Yeah,
because, you know, you Google yourself silly,
that's
and
exactly
it
what
was,
I did. I didn't even know where to look for support. I went through most of it with no support. I had a few friends that had gone through it, but not really, not in the same way. And I would talk to them a little bit, but a lot of the time I just buried my head in Google and got on with it. And I just
yeah,
afterwards sort of felt actually we need to do more. If and also if people are more informed about their options, about support groups, it will make it so much easier for them. So
yeah,
hopefully it
definitely.
makes a difference. And
Yeah,
we're
there's
very
so much
grateful.
out there.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
very
there's so
grateful
much
to have
out
all the experts on board and help us.
there. Fab.
Yeah.
That's
Well, thank you
great.
so much. Was there
No,
anything
you're welcome.
else you wanted to cover?
I don't think so. I think that's
We've
everything,
gone through
really.
a
We've
lot.
covered quite a lot, to be fair.
So much. And if anyone watching does want any more information about how to get in touch with Kelly, if you go to our experts section, you can see a little profile with contact details, or reach out to us and we can put you in touch. And did you say you're going to be doing another program soon?
Yes, so I'll be doing a new mentorship in the new year, but people can access one-to-ones if they need support at any stage of their journey or beyond.
Be so helpful, and hopefully we can get that on the app somewhere and direct people to that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, great stuff.
Thank you so
You're
much.
you're welcome. Take